Unlock the power of AI in marketing with our new series, AI Agent. Dive into the world of SaaS tools, discover how marketing pros deploy bots, and explore the best use cases for AI in your marketing strategy. Only on Marketing in the Age of AI podcast with Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI. Today, I'm sitting down with Fahed Bizzari, a renowned expert in harnessing AI as an impact multiplier for business growth and innovation. With over 4,000 hours of hands-on experience with AI, large language models, and a background spanning 17 years in knowledge engineering and 22 years in small business leadership, Fahed offers unique insights into how AI is transforming organizational capabilities. Thanks for joining me today, Fahed. I guess tonight, probably for you, huh?
That's right. Yeah, it's nighttime here in Dubai.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to have a conversation with me.
It's a pleasure.
Well, there's always lots of changes that happen from one day to the next, 1 week to the next. I'm curious what projects you're working on right now that are the most interesting to you.
Oh, what a fantastic question. So there's stuff that we do internally, which is the stuff that is really interesting, because when we do stuff internally, we don't have any limitations, we don't have any red tape to go through.
Yeah.
So the big thing that we're working with right now is something called MCP, which has brought the future into the present. Really, it's basically allowing AI to operate out in the internet as though it were a human being just getting things done.
Yeah.
And from a development point of view, when you're developing AI-enabled processes, it allows you to just get things done really fast and really quick. Things that used to take, we're talking about automations, like automation already makes things quick. And what MCP does is makes automations quick, right?
Yeah.
So it's like a double whammy.
So you're talking about the Anthropic product, MCP, is that correct?
Yeah, this is the one from Anthropic, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
This is at the moment, it's the most useful one available at the moment.
Which is really, it's the closest we have to true and agentic AI, right? Versus just an automation or an agent.
Correct. And the thing that I like about it is that when we talk about agentic AI, what we're basically saying is that the AI has agency, right? That it has the freedom to do what it wants to do. And we're kind of hoping that it's going to be aligned with our objectives. And the thing I like about MCP is that each individual task is kind of contained. So you can say to it, okay, I want you to go and check my email, and it will figure out what that means. In the old days, you'd have to point it at a certain aspect of the web page and click a certain button. But now, because it can kind of look at a web page as though it were a human being and other functionality like that, it means that you don't really need to go really granular when you're putting these automations together. Now, the thing that always scared me about agentic AI, and the funny thing is I'm heading to Moldova next week to deliver a keynote at a government conference. And I was their keynote speaker last year, and I was giving them the state of AI update.
Right.
And I told them the thing that's coming up now, which I'm terrified about, is agentic AI. Like everything I've told you about so far, it's amazing. The thing that I'm scared about is agentic AI, because we're basically giving the AI freedom. And what I like about working with MCP is that freedom is kind of boxed in on a component by component basis. So we are still somewhat in control of our co-pilot, not allowing the co-pilot to just, run amok and become the pilot itself. Now, that doesn't mean that it's completely agentic, if you think about it, because completely agentic, now there are some scientific AIs that are being released now where the AI is behaving like a scientist, doing its own experiments, doing its own hypotheses, writing its own research papers, and so on. And so that's fully agentic. What we're doing through MCP, let's just call it partially agentic or contained agentic. And I like that.
Yeah. No, I think we know this, that there in every situation, there's threats, there's opportunities and obligations, right? So, there's obviously this big portion of the marketplace that's worried about this agentic AI, and that we're all going to be taken over by the robots and the dogs and all those things, which is a possibility, right? Because there are people who use any technology for nefarious purposes. The positive side is that we're able to use this. We don't have to do as much prompt writing, for instance, with the MCP, right? So that's one thing. We don't have to anticipate so many things, and it's learning and thinking a little bit on its own. But I like this, what you're talking about within these containers, and that's critical.
Yeah, and I mean, you do still need to prompt with the MCPs. You still do need to give it the guidelines and so on.
Sure.
But you have a lot more freedom, and so you can take it a lot easier.
Yeah, very nice. Well, can you just describe maybe some of the processes that you're using the MCP to do right now internally?
Okay, so I mean, our biggest one at the moment, I mean, I shouldn't say it publicly, but our biggest one at the moment is identifying, like, so we've just done an entire scraping of LinkedIn of all the companies that we target here in the UAE.
Yep.
All companies between 50 and, because we have two different markets. We've got one market, which is large corporates, where we are supporting their chief digital officers with consulting, with training, and whatever they need. So we're kind of like the artillery sitting in the back. But our main audience are companies between about 50 to 200 people. So we've gone off and we have ravaged the hell out of LinkedIn. We've identified 35,000 companies. We've then taken it a step further to identify who's the senior decision maker in all of these companies, got a profile done a completely enriched CRM.
Yep.
That right now we're in Dubai, right? So we're in the middle of Ramadan, which is the quiet period. But after Ramadan finishes and we have our celebration, then we'll hit the road running. And at that point, then we have a very customized outreach that will be going out to all of them, inviting them to complimentary events, inviting them to take assessments, complimentary assessments, inviting them for industry impact reports. So it's really gonna make our marketing fly.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Top of the funnel is the one of the big applications for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And our funnel is actually very simple, because we don't even like to use the word funnel. We just look at it as education.
Sure.
And then once they're ready to take action, the ones that educated them, we're here waiting for you.
Yeah.
And so we take a what I like to call a marketing oriented sales approach. So we are reaching out to them proactively,
Yep.
but we're not trying to sell them a solution. We're trying to sell them education,
Right.
and we're not charging them for it.
Right.
So we're reaching out to them and saying, come and learn about these different topics. We have different guides for you. We have different assessments for you. And then their learning journey can begin.
Yeah, no, it's I love it. Very sophisticated content marketing. It's very very elegant the way you describe it. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So let's see. It was released, I think, November, the Anthropic product.
I think that sounds quite sensible. Yeah, it was about November. That sounds.
And then when did you start to internalize it for inside your company and start testing?
To be honest with you, only last month, because originally it was this whole idea of MCP was released and all the conversation was about interacting with your local server. And then they introduced this idea called MCP servers, where actually now the servers can actually list all the different types of services that it can work with. And now you plug into the MCP server to now do all of these extra things. And so that's really, and we only started to understand that last month. So
yeah. I think that's kind of on track. Yeah. And the conversations I've been having, it's kind of a similar situation where it's just starting to really come on board for development agencies.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah. I'm wondering, how about client projects that you can talk about in high level? What kind of automations or agents are you building client side?
Most of the client work we do, actually, we're not the ones who are building the agents. Most of the companies that we've worked so far, they have their own technical teams and so on. Right. And we come in there and we basically open their eyes to the possibilities. Yep. So the most exciting project which we worked on recently with one client who basically, when we were proposing training for their staff, they said, look, the problem with training is that you train people and the trainers leave, and how much gets retained and so on. And that's something I'm very passionate about. I've always been upset about that, conceptually speaking. And our ethos was always transformation, not information. So what we put together, and this program is about to be rolled out now, is actually training 50 members of staff on building copilots, which is the Microsoft equivalent to GPTs.
Yep.
So instead of just training them on AI in general and teach them prompting, what we'll be doing is working with 3 departments. The 3 department representatives, we will work with them to create copilots out of one process per department.
So can we call that a custom GPT for each department?
It is
coherent?
exactly. It's a custom GPT. It's the same thing. So Copilot
Gotcha.
is just Microsoft's equivalent to OpenAI's GPTs.
Roger.
The platform that we use, they call it models, but ultimately it's all the same thing. So what we'll be doing is first working with these business process owners to create these GPTs.
Yep.
Then we will be teaching the whole 50 members across these 3 departments. We'll be teaching them how to build out GPTs, and the examples we will be using, walking them through our framework, are the 3 examples that we built with their team leaders.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Right? Then what we'll be doing, and I love it so much, what we'll be doing is putting them in pairs, and inside of the training program, getting them to decide what they want to build GPTs for. Yeah. So now you take 50 people, you break them into 25 groups of 2, and now they are all making a commitment that within 3 weeks, they're going to build out their first GPT.
Nice.
And then after the training program, we will reconvene after 3 weeks for a show and tell.
Yeah.
The show and tell will be on a per department level, and we'll have 2 sets of office hours in between the main training and the show and tell to give them a sense of accountability that you really do have to show up. You really do have to do this. Right. And we've got this show and tell coming up. So this is something that I personally find I find it very exciting, because, building out automations, to be honest with you, Emmanuel, I've been building out automations since 2003. Okay, fair enough. It wasn't AI, but they were automations nevertheless.
Absolutely.
And the thing about automations is that they're great, they're fantastic. But if a company parachutes in and builds out an automation, then it doesn't really change anything for the company itself. It just means one process was improved.
Right.
But if you look at the overall level of the company and their level of expertise and skills and the skill gap and the knowledge gap, nothing really changed for the company.
I hear it. Yes.
Yeah. And so really, like, if you take the other example I gave you, no, at the end of that training program, they will walk away with 28 GPTs, right? The 3 with the first team leaders and the 25 created across the group. And you will have 50 people that now know how to build GPTs.
Yeah, that's transformation.
That is transformation. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now what happens with those people is, okay, they can start imagining and envisioning, hey, could we do this? Can we do that? Right. And they'll know how to frame it, how to structure it, and either they develop it or they pass it onto their tech team.
I love it. What a great concept and really innovative way to bring AI first embedded into a company, and really giving people ownership and agency for the agentic AI. I love it.
Yeah. And they need it, because the people inside the company, they know the company.
Sure.
Even if you brought the best consultants in the world, right? Bring the best consultants in the world, no one is going to know a company like its people do inside. And so if you can get those people trained up to understand, first and foremost, how GPTs work, and then on the back of that, how AI-enabled business processes work, then you've empowered them now to kind of lead themselves into the future.
Yeah, and is it the same 3 departments in every company, or what? How do you build that?
No. This was actually the company themselves that chose it. So we're working with these 3 first, and then they have another. They have another branch in Saudi Arabia, and for that branch, it's not going to be 3 teams. It's just going to be 1 team of 50.
Wow.
So it just depends on the company. And of course, when you're doing this, when you're working with each of those individual pairs, there's more time commitment and so on. So it's just completely custom made.
Yeah. No. Well, I think that's brilliant and a really nice way to educate and provide transformation where everybody becomes an innovation officer inside the company.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's interesting. Also, let's see. I guess where do you see things and the work that you're doing? What do you see in the next couple months? I mean, how are things going to change?
Well, I mean, the big change is that the level of education and receptivity amongst business leaders is increasing.
Yeah.
I remember the first proposal I put forward to a business was in March 2023. That was the first proposal I put forward. The CEO at the time, he was very excited. And then he ended up passing it over to the CTO. CTO drowned it. It was brought to a very quick end.
Yeah.
I remember at that time thinking, my God, like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Now, these days, no, now everybody is starting to understand. Everybody's starting to realize how important it is. The embrace, let's call it, the
Yep.
embrace amongst business leadership is up. So the amount of inquiries we get is continuous. The amount of engagements we get is continuous. And I think it's just a very, very exciting time to be doing the work that we're doing.
Oh, without a doubt, and the efficiency that you're able to bring in.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about some KPIs that you're seeing in terms of human hours and cost savings, EBITDA effect. What are you seeing for your deployments?
Well, I think the most exciting and the most promising thing people don't realize when they say, okay, the number of hours saved. Okay, fantastic. There's a difference between man hours, right? Which is when a person's paying full attention, working on a task, and you can bring that down. And these days we can bring tasks down from weeks and months down to minutes.
Sure.
But the real magic is in the inefficiency that comes about from team dynamics, meaning you do a piece of work
Yep.
and you now have to pass that piece of work on to somebody else and wait for them to reply back. And then there's a whole load of kind of like logistical frustration that takes place. And that's really where the magic happens, is that a lot of that logistical frustration gets eliminated.
Yep.
I'll give you an example. The way that we work when we're working in language models ourselves is that we have spun up a whole lot of experts that help us with different topics. So we'll have a copywriting expert, we'll have a information architect expert, we'll have a business process management expert. And whenever I'm working on a task, I will say, okay, the expert that can help me the best is going to be Billy, the business process expert.
Yeah.
So I'll invoke him in the middle of the conversation and I'll say, hey, Billy, take a look at this conversation and let me know what you think.
Yeah.
And then Billy, who is programmed and optimized in business processes, he will give his feedback, say, okay, you need to change that, improve this, improve that. Then we have, I have another expert called Andrew. Now, Andrew is he's a CEO who is, I mean, it's a really long, if I tell you his full story, it's
Right.
a very long, elaborate story, but he's basically a CEO that wants to give back to the community. So he's a CEO that speaks to CEOs. So after working with all the other professionals, I'll say, hey, Andrew, take a look at everything that we've concluded so far. What do you think? And so now he's speaking from so I was just thinking to myself, like, in the old days, I genuinely would have contacted that business process expert.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And I would have said, hey, Billy, what do you think? And I would have had to wait for 3 days for Billy to reply back and say, hey, I'm a bit busy at the moment. Just give me a few days and I'll come back to you.
Yes.
And when he would come back to me, it would just be his opinion. Whereas now it's like, no, Billy is going to give me instant advice and we're going to get the thing fixed there and then.
Yeah.
So that's really, and when you look at business process automation as a whole, that's really where the biggest savings are taking place. They're being saved, not necessarily in the actual man hours of the individual doing it. It's more like the work days that get eliminated because there's no more logistical frustration.
Yeah, the time lag for sure. Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree with that 100%. And to some extent, you're also you're stepping aside of politics and and other things,
Exactly.
some negative personal interactions too. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'll tell you something that we're working on just today, which is a company that deals in like bulldozers, I forget what they call them, like large machinery.
Okay.
And at the moment, the way they have it is whenever salespeople go out into the field, they come back and they log whatever happened in the site visit, right?
Sure. Yep.
Then they've got their own system. They'll log it in. They find it a bit frustrating. A lot of them are speak English as a second language, so it's very frustrating for them to work within the constraints of this system. And then what happens is their sales manager will then give them feedback in that system
Right.
that says, okay, did you consider this? Or if they're in that area, did you consider offering them that equipment? Or he will just give his experience feedback as an experienced sales manager.
Sure.
And so what we're working on with them now, thank God they've done this digitally. Thank God they did this digitally for a number of years, because we now have the entire history of all the feedback that have come from the salespeople and all the feedback that have come from the sales managers. So put two and two together, we can do two things. We can create a persona of a sales manager specific to their company.
Sure.
Not a general sales manager in general, but one that is actually built up on their years of data. And we can get the sales manager we can get that persona to give immediate feedback based on the years of data and the patterns within it. So now those sales reps, when they come in and they put in that feedback, they can effectively get instant feedback from their sales manager without actually having to disturb the sales manager. Like,
Right.
the sales manager can be focused on other things, and these guys don't have to wait. They can actually get back in touch with the client and say, hey, listen, also I was also thinking, what about this? What about that? And so on.
Well, yeah, and it could all be done in their native language,
As well,
by
exactly.
voice, right? I mean,
well, that's the implementation. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's phenomenal, and that you have that much data to work with, and it becomes instantaneous feedback. So
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, you and I could have this conversation for the next 2 hours, I think, but I'll let you get on with your day. If people want to get in touch with you and have a conversation about working, how do they do that?
The best thing is through LinkedIn. I'm the only Fahed Bizzari in the world, so I'm easily found.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate it. And I'm grateful for your time this evening, and I appreciate the stories and the use cases and your experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Hang on for me while I wrap this up, and we'll close it out. Thanks, Fahed. Well, there you have it. Some really interesting use cases, and I think really the best thing is how you can educate the staff, your staff, on how to implement these GPTs and how to innovate the companies that take the time to invest in these processes are the ones that are going to succeed and thrive in the next years and decades. And so I appreciate Fahed Bizzari sharing that process. And until next time, I hope you have a great day, and that you implement some AI tools that save you time so you can spend it with your friends, family, and outside for a walk in nature. Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.